We're talking today on this Friday edition of The Next Right Thing, all about really staying in that beautiful place of appreciation, having that awe and wonder for all that God has created, for really entering into and marveling about how he has gone so over the top magnificent with us in terms of the beauty that surrounds us on a regular basis, the just the ability, the depth of just the details and of how he constructed and created everything in order to have real true meaning and to point back to him. And so there's so many ways we can look at this, but I know Adam and I are going to really shape this the next right thing for this Friday edition so that you can walk into the weekend and share this with your families, because that's what Morning Joy is all about. We're pilgrims on a journey. We're trying to get closer to God, that road of holiness, sainthood. And so we have to keep talking about things like this to remind each other of what's really important in life, not the silly things that we give our attention to, or even sometimes the bickering and the arguing and things that we fight over maybe in our homes because that something didn't get done or the dishes didn't get washed or something of that nature, but really the awe and wonder and the magnificence of God. What do you say, Adam?
Yeah. The church's understanding and teaching on this is the two places that you can really see God in this life is in nature and in the church. And what does that mean? Well, in nature, it's kind of built into us. Everybody, I think just about every human being, if there's a really gorgeous sunset, every human being would be like, I get it. That's beautiful. Even if you're a bitter, resentful person, you're still going to begrudgingly admit, yeah, that's beautiful. We all get it. Beauty is one of those things, that phrase, it when you see it. And of course, beauty, we try to apply reason to beauty. And, from the Greeks onward, Plato with his forms and trying to understand what constitutes beauty, what moves the heart and mind, such that we say something is beautiful versus another thing that doesn't. What is it? Is it symmetry? Is it, the quality of it? Is there something inherent in us, in it, that reminds us of ourselves? We've wrestled with this idea. But I think the simplest thing is to say, you know it when you see it. And so God's gift to us, of course, we know as Christians, the main gift is of himself. Jesus coming, suffering for us, dying for us, being resurrected, opened the way to the beatific vision for us. That's the main gift that he gives. But he gives us life, right? Jesus talks about life abundantly. Gives us the joy of sensation, of perception, of the ability to enjoy this beautiful creation, to look up at the night sky and see the constellations and the stars, and to see that sunset, to look at a newborn baby for those that have had children and, be overwhelmingly moved by that. He gives us the gift of life and the ability to enjoy the beauty of life, the beauty of creation, through which we see, in a way, a reflection of God. We see his handiwork, right, in that beautiful sunset. And in the church, we see the beauty of not only the spiritual beauty of the sacraments, the presence of Jesus, all the beautiful human, emotional, social, personal gifts, miracles, just moments of kindness that you see within the church, but also the beauty of the church, right? Sacred architecture, the way churches are designed, there's great meaning to it. It's very specific. It's designed to elicit certain reactions. And Deb, I was recently in Rome again. I've had the gift of being there a number of times. And, every time I walk into St. Peter's Basilica, you can't capture it on TV. You just can't. You see it on TV and it's like, oh yeah, wow, that's amazing. Look how big, look how little the people are. It's huge. And wow, it's really beautiful. You walk in there in person, it is just I mean, it's the most beautiful sculpture humanity basically has ever created. You've got paintings by Raphael. You have sculpture in there. I believe some of the stuff is Michelangelo that's in there. I'm not positive on that. It's all of that highest quality Renaissance style for the most part. Just jaw-dropping. The scale of the place that they built that, 1,100 years ago, and it's still standing, and the scale of it is staggering. And what does it do? It draws your mind up to Michelangelo's dome over the altar at the center there. Your eyes are drawn up, so your mind is drawn up to God. There's a reason. It's meant to have you feel and imagine heaven above you, and to be the desire to go up and to meet God in heaven. The images and the statues, some people like to criticize the church and say, oh, that's idolatry. You shouldn't give honor to statues. The images and the statues are there historically because the church has been here for 2,000 years, and for a large chunk of that history, everybody was illiterate, except the priest and a few highly educated people. Education was not universal by a long shot for the vast majority of that 2,000 years. So those images and statues are there to remind you of the stories for people that couldn't read the stories themselves. They heard the stories, but they might only hear that story once a year. As the church goes through the Bible, goes through the scriptures that are covered each year. So there's beauty on so many levels within the church and in our lives. And it makes us, I think, appreciate, even if we just go back to that sunset, makes us just appreciate the fact that we're alive. And sometimes in those moments, we see something that's so far beyond ourselves, so far beyond our ability to create something. Like, we can't create a sunset. We couldn't even begin to remotely influence where the sun is in the sky, let alone create a canvas that large by any human effort. And we can just be there in awe and feel so tiny, so minuscule compared to God. And so in awe of the fact that he's so far beyond us, that here's this little bit of handiwork that he did in this sunset. And it's transformative.
Of course it is. Well, and it's a little glimpse of heaven. I mean, that's why I think that he drops these clues and this vibrant, way of showing what heaven is going to be like for us. We would be overwhelmed with the big picture. And yet those that can appreciate all that he's done for us by way of creation and nature, and those that really dive deeply into that and let it enhance their spiritual walk, they get it. They understand that, and they have an appreciation of that. And it's so much bigger than that what is being prepared for us, for the ultimate, for all of eternity. And I'm right with you, Adam, as you were walking back to Rome and the beautiful country of Italy. I've said this many times, and I'm not joking about this, folks. The first time I landed in Rome, and I opened my eyes as we were walking to the first hotel, I said to Marty, my husband, I said, my eyes hurt. It's so vibrant. It was almost painful because it was so majestic. And I thought, wow, do the people here of Italy realize what they have around them? And, I would ask sometimes the people in the hotel, we were chatting because I was trying to practice my Italian because I spoke a little bit of conversational Italian back then. And I was trying to practice it, and I asked them that. I said, do you appreciate this? And they would just smile, and they would nod, and they would say, oh, yes. But I'm wondering, and you tapped into that as well. It's just so extraordinary. And, I mean, I live in Arizona, the state of Arizona. I mean, we're known for the most beautiful sunrises and sunsets. Now, I will tell you, the people of Arizona do tend to very much appreciate that. I mean, oftentimes you'll be driving to work and you'll see people pulled over to the side of the road taking pictures of the sunrise and coming home from work, and they want to get home during rush hour, and you'll see people pull over and take pictures of the sunset. So I mean, that's quite beautiful. What do you say real quickly?
Yeah. I think it's easy to take things for granted where you live, the gifts that you've been given. I know I've I've done that. There's a number of things in the northeastern United States, beautiful things that I never took the time to go see just because they're here. It's just kind of part of the background for us until I had a friend come in from another country that wanted to see all these things, and that was my excuse. And then I realized, like, wow, like I
Right.
should have seen
Right.
this stuff before.
Yeah.
It's right here in the backyard.
Yeah.
Like we have this chapel here in Pittsburgh that has probably the second largest collection of first class relics in the world after the Vatican, and it's like an embarrassment of riches, right? Like, I can't believe it. There's over 5,000 relics, and the whole place was built to house these relics by this priest who came from, essentially came from a royal family.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea it was here until somebody mentioned it, and I went to see
Wow.
it, and I'm like, and tour buses come almost every day of the week.
Oh my goodness.
Pilgrimage buses arrive from across the country, people coming to see this, and for us it's like, oh yeah, it's just that church on the hill. So it's easy to fall into, but I guess, to take it to the next right thing, for all of us, like, to take a moment, as you were saying before we started the show today, take a moment to appreciate God's gift of the beauty in his creation, the beauty in your life, and not just be like, oh yeah, that's beautiful, but actually take a moment of silence and really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a way, it's a kind of a prayer. It's a kind of a connection with God.
Yes, 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 and it's acknowledging how incredible our God is. I so agree. I started thinking. You brought me back to my trip to Italy. Also, when I went to the Holy Land, same thing. Just beautiful and just incredibly deep. And then it got me thinking of just where we live. Not too far from where I live. Lake Tahoe, Nevada and California border there. It's the lake, you look at places that we have just in driving or flying distance. I mean, just so incredible with you can just feel that God just breathes such beautiful, incredible, vibrant and artistic life into what we see every day, just by way of the tall trees and the beautiful water and just the sky being so vast and showing the greatness, the huge sense of God. I mean, those kinds of things are, in my opinion, and I'm sure we can all agree on this, are a little slice of heaven. But
Mm-hmm.
they're all around us. So even when we're having very difficult days, when we're experiencing extreme suffering or pain or loss,
Mm-hmm.
That's why we always say in coaching, Adam, speak to this, go out in nature, take a walk, see that it's much bigger than the set of problems that you're dealing with.
Yeah, and there's the final place I wanted to go today, if it's okay, is to link this back to Lent, right?
Yes.
So we've got prayer, fasting, and acts of charity for others, usually people that are having some difficulties. And we say, like, okay, we've been talking about beautiful sunsets and getting out into nature. And all of that is very true. And you can see a reflection of God there. But if we think of like the Carthusian religious order, this is the one religious order that has never been reformed in the history of the church since it was created. It's the only one as far as I know. And they are the strictest cloistered monastic order that exists by far. They live in a little room with a little courtyard with walls around it. It's very much like prisoners used to live in Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, which was a very old prison where everybody was in solitary confinement, and they had a little like 6x6 walkway outside with walls around it. So they never saw another human being unless stuff was passed through the door for food. And even then they didn't see the person. And you say like, oh, that sounds awful. What an awful way to be in prison. And yet the Carthusians, the one order the church has never seen a need to reform, essentially live like that. They only, the priests only speak 1 hour a week during a 1 hour walk where they walk as a group 2 by 2, and they get to talk to each other for 1 hour. That's it for the entire week. The rest is silent prayer. They speak when they pray their office in church, but that's not like a conversation with each other, right? Okay, so what's my point? Prayer, fasting, and charity itself, even though it doesn't seem as exciting as the sunset and outwardly beautiful, ultimately is one of the routes to God. And we can find incredible beauty in prayer, even if our eyes are closed or if we're in a simple room. There is the movement of grace is so beautiful and transformative, and you can kind of just fall into it. It's hard to describe. When I've had the gift of being, praying deeply, and it's usually in these circumstances of exorcisms where it's very intense prayer and your pleas to God are very sincere because there's something very visceral going on right in front of you and the enemy is directly present, and so you're praying your heart out. But it's not just about our effort of praying our heart out. Through God's grace, that prayer takes you to a place of an awareness of God's presence, his attendance to our prayers, his response to our prayers, the beauty of the fact that we're alive, and he is responding to our prayers. And then the grace moving as that response comes. Mm-hmm. That itself is also a form of beauty and a way of seeing God. So, and the church, through her wisdom and experience, directs us to both. Remember at the outset, we said the church says you can see God in nature and in the church.
That's right.
And in the church, we primarily see prayer, fasting, and charity. And so we can take a journey inward to God just as we can look outward to God.
Thank you for listening to The Next Right Thing with angel specialist Debbie Georgianni and religious demonologist Adam Bly. Debbie and Adam are daily contributors to the live radio program Morning Joy, hosted by Keith Downey every weekday on the Guadalupe Radio Network. For more authentic Catholic content, go to grnonline.com/joy.